Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for checking it out if you're new. X-Men 97 has come out recently and I have become a little bit obsessed with the X-Men because of it. All of season 1 is now streaming on Disney+. This is, if you don't know, it's a sequel series to the original X-Men animated series. And while not essential, I do think watching that original show made the show better for myself. I've now watched through X-Men 97 twice while working on another video, and so I thought it would be fun to quickly jump on Tier Maker and make a tier list of the characters, because there are so many fun and lovable characters in X-Men 97. Now, of course, with ranking characters, it becomes hard because you have heroes and villains, main characters, side characters. Obviously, this is subjective. You can make your own tier list using the link down in the description. I'm going to be trying to rank the characters based on their screen time as well as my personal feelings, their role in the story. Are they a big part of the story? Are they, a minor spot? Things like that. Like, for example, right here, I'm going to start off with Mr. Scott Summers, Cyclops, and he's going up in S tier. I think Scott, I won't spoil who else, but there are some others who have become my favorite in the X-Men. And I really like Scott Summers, Cyclops in this show because they make him fun and cool. As someone who grew up with the Fox movies, I never realized Cyclops was so cool. Like, I just thought he was the guy who shoots lasers out of his eyes. And then it turns out he doesn't even shoot like lasers. They're like concussive blast. It's like if you were to be punched in the face by his laser beam. And so the show really utilizes that, like the whole scene where he jumps out of the plane and he doesn't use a parachute, he stops himself with the beam, is so cool. And I really like the arc he went through this whole season of trying to be the better man and trying to be, the man the professor might have wanted him to be. But then he wavers when he loses his son and he starts to almost play around with the dark side. We have had Scott go radical / kind of evil in the comics before, and so I was expecting that to happen this season, if not next season, definitely. And then we have Madeline Pryor, or the Goblin Queen. This is the clone of Jean Grey. And I did enjoy her, but I almost want to put her down towards the bottom because, honestly, for me, that's the one thing I didn't love about the show, is the fact that they killed her right after. Like, we spent the whole first episode with her thinking she's Grey. Then the second episode we spend with her and we learn at the end she's a clone. Then the third episode, she becomes the Goblin Queen. It's her whole finding herself story. And then she's not in episode 4. And then in episode 5, she dies. So, yeah, I felt like there was more to do with Madeline. Maybe not. I'm not as familiar with her as some of the other characters. But I just felt like killing her was pretty anticlimactic. Like, we just had this whole reveal of her and her becoming, the Goblin Queen / herself, and then she dies. And I guess you could say that adds to the drama of Jean and Scott and Cable, of like, I'm not really your mom, but I am your mom. That whole dynamic. But overall, I felt disappointed by her inclusion. And then if I look at Logan, I go back and forth because he doesn't have a lot to do this season. Like, he's just kind of there for the fights. He is a bit of emotional, but the Scott, Jean, and Logan love triangle never works. I'm sorry. I don't like it here. I don't like it in the Fox movies. I don't like it in the other show. I find it annoying and frustrating. And so, I don't know. Let's put Logan right in the middle for now. We can always move him later. And then we've got Morph down here. And Morph is actually a character that I hated him so much in the original animated series. You see, throughout the animated series, Morph is like mind controlled and traumatized by Mr. Sinister. And so the whole series, it's like the He joins the X-Men, then he leaves. He joins the X-Men, then he leaves. He joins the X-Men, and then he leaves. And it was like, okay, at some point, Morph either needs to stay gone or stay on the team. You know, I got frustrated with that with the original show. And so here he's on the team, and they do bring his trauma back. I'm going to put him, and he's probably about with Logan and B, maybe A. I do like what they did with him, the LGBT kind of romance that's alluded to with him and Logan, because that is one thing from the original show is they are best buds. Like, the reason Morph keeps coming back is because of Logan. You know, Logan goes and finds him and tries to get him to join the team again. And of course, Morph does have feelings for him. And so, I don't know. I'll leave him in B with Wolverine for now. Because I think Storm is a good example of A tier. I think she is fun and interesting in the show. Is she my favorite? No. I think the life death two-parter that she's in about her getting her powers back could have been one episode. It feels a little stretched out. But I also know why they did it, because it's kind of split between the Jubilee side story and the Professor side story, and then they have Storm. So, you know, you get the first half of Storm in Jubilee's story, then you get the second half of Storm in the Professor's story. But overall, I think she's fun. I think her losing her powers was done really good, you know. How they demonstrate how she's scared when the thunder strikes, because normally she's the one causing the thunder, but this time she doesn't know what's gonna storm and it catches her off guard. And just the whole her losing her powers and having to get them back, and then she gets her like OG outfit. I do miss the mohawk that she has before she gets this outfit back, but that's okay. And then we have Rogue. Rogue is one, she's an S tier. I have told my friends this countless times, but I think either these two characters right here, of Rogue and Scott, are my two favorites of the show. Like, I do think they might be my favorite X-Men now. I like Rogue's powers, you know, the ability to touch someone and take their abilities is cool, as well as how that has the negative of she can't touch anyone, you know, it's sad. And how she struggles with that, like her relationship with Magneto and Gambit. Like, she has the love for Gambit, but she can touch Magneto. And so she can have that physical connection with Magneto while that emotional connection with Gambit. And then I love the way she goes dark at the back half of the season, where I love her little thing with General Ross, how he's like, I thought you were one of the good ones. And she's like, you killed all of them, sugar. Now you're stuck with me. And I like her little southern twang. Overall, just a really fun character. Speaking of Remy, we have Gambit. And I feel like Gambit's a little tricky. He wavers here between A and B for me. I'm going to put him in A, because he does have a really good arc. He dies at the midpoint of the season, you know, during the Genosha attack. But boy, does he go out with a bang. I like I said, I like the will they won't they of him and Rogue. He's not given a ton to do in this series. He gets a lot more to do in the original animated series. Here, he kind of just has his will they won't they with Rogue. But I like the way they use his powers. You know, he's got anything he touch. Him and Rogue both touch-based powers, even though Rogue can't touch him. Where anything he touches becomes supercharged with kinetic energy and explodes. And so, like, he can touch... everybody goes back and forth on, like, the Wolverine claws thing of, like, would that not just make Wolverine explode? But I think he can control it to a point. Like, same thing, like, when he throws the beignet at Cyclops. I would assume it would have been not too huge of an explosion. Like, it wouldn't have killed anybody. And I'm excited to see him come... Like, we all know he's coming back next season as a Horseman of Apocalypse, and it will be a fun dynamic and drama there. And then we've got Jubilee, and unfortunately, we'll put Jubilee in B. Jubilee doesn't have a ton to do this season, minus Pine over Sunspot, and go back and forth. She's kind of the mentor to Sunspot because he is essentially filling the role that she did last series, where now he's the mutant they've rescued and she exposition dumps everything onto him. And I think her little story with Roberto and like trying to force him out of the closet is interesting, but also goes a little unresolved. Like, she has her moment where she stands up to Bastion and she's like, I'm more than just the 4th of July. But then I feel like all she does is knock him back and something falls on him. Like, I feel like Jubilee is just right in the middle. Like, I love Jubilee in the original series. She has grown on me. I hadn't known her until watching the show. Beast, Hank McCoy. I'm going to put him in A. I like his presence here. He is the team scientist. He does create the jets for him. Jean makes the remark of, like, oh, Hank's gonna kill you. That's the 3rd one this month. You've blown up, or whatever, in the finale. And I really like how he just throws out his whimsical quotes and things like that. How he'll say, like, beware the Jabberwocky. Not much of a C.S. Lewis fan during the whole Sinister stuff, and he's like, oh, wrong elevator. I also really like that they let his scientific side show, where like he figures out that Jean, when he helps figure out between Madeline and Jean who the clone is, tests their DNA, and he's like, this DNA is older, she's the real Jean. Or how he then analyzes it further and he learns it's sinister because of the, how he says, like, scientists leave like a signature on all their work. And so I do like Hank. I hope to see him a little more on the battlefield. Oh, that's another one. Is when he is in the fights, he is constantly like reprogramming the Sentinels, his intelligence. Yes, he has great strength, but he's also super intelligent. And so I love him reprogramming the Sentinels. Bishop's hard because Bishop's basically, he's really cool when he's here, but he's not in the show. Like, he goes back. I'll put him in C because it's the same thing with Madeline. He's really cool. I like the way they demonstrate his ability to absorb energy and then put it back out in blast. However, he leaves. He takes baby Cable, baby Nathan to the future with him, and he's gone the rest of the season. And so that's where I'd put him in C. I think his fight scenes are really cool. That's what brings him up out of D tier. I love when he has Cyclops blast him to charge himself and then he shoots it out. Or when they're fighting the Sentinels and he like shields Storm with his own body to then blast it back at them. Things like that. And then we've got Eric / Magnus. And who would have thought he's going in S tier? I love Magneto in this show. I think both of his designs are cool. Both his classic, like, red and purple costume, and then this one that he's wearing with the big M on the shirt. That's from the comics. But I just like that Eric is such a complicated character. Because you can jump to Magneto was right, but then Eric takes it too far. He becomes the monster he wants to destroy. He becomes the genocidal maniac then after being genocided. Like, it's hard because he that's what makes him such a good villain, is you almost, like, you do agree, like, yeah, Magneto was right, but at the same time you're like, Eric, I don't know about the shutting off all the power forever and killing everybody by the end of it. But I really liked Magneto's presence, and I liked him how he did try. He wasn't faking. He wasn't pretending to be good. He actually did try. Like, he was trying to follow Charles's example and his wishes. And by the end of it, he is, I tried, now shut up, we're doing it my way. Then we've got Roberto Sunspot. I'm putting him down in D tier. He's just kind of there this season. Like, he feels like he was just the audience insert for the first episode so we could meet the team. And then he kind of just goes back and forth on whether to be public as a mutant, and then he goes and joins Magneto and is bad now, so to say. And so I also do not care about him and Jubilee's little romance thing they've got going on. Mr. Sinister, an X-Men villain who has yet to appear in the movies. Hint, hint, at a future video. But, I'll put him probably... I'm gonna put him in A. He's so deliciously cartoony and evil. Like, Mr. Sinister's whole thing is genetics and altering DNA and mind control and things like that. And so, what's he do here? He created Madeline Pryor. He cloned Jean. And I really like the mystery of when did it happen and how he taunts them with that all season long. And no, we never get a clear answer. I also love his visual design. Like, I just think he's a cool looking character. And the way he's always in the shadows, but is trying to stay one step ahead of everybody. Then we have Forge. I'm putting Forge down in C for now. He's almost B. Like, I go back and forth because I think Forge is interesting. However, it's the same problem. The C tier is basically the didn't have enough to do tier. Where, yeah, Forge he's not in the show, and I feel like they don't show his techno, like, they say that Bastion has technokinesis, but in the comics, so does Forge. However, I feel like they don't do anything with it. They don't have him build anything interesting. Like, he does help Beast build the device they used to stop Bastion near the end, but other than that, yeah, I feel like Forge is really gonna shine next season. Like, both Forge and Bishop, I think, are gonna shine a lot next season because they're gonna have that opportunity because, you know, I've been talking full spoilers here, but the rest of the team all get zipped back in time, and so now it's gonna be up to these two to go find everybody. Cable is another character I've never really cared for. Like, he's the son of Madeline Pryor and Scott Summers, who has to be sent to the future because of a techno-organic virus that he's infected by Mr. Sinister. And I think he's alright in the show. He's definitely better here than he is in the original show, because I think I'm going to put him in A. Because at least here, maybe push him down to B. I'm going to put him in A for now, because at least he has to deal with the drama of dealing with Scott and Jean, you know, his parents. Jean's not his birth mother, but she is an exact copy of his mother. Versus in the original series, he's just kind of a soldier who comes back and is a hard ass. Versus here, we see him, he opens up a little more about his parents, while also still being stern and tough. And then we have the woman herself, Jean Grey. And Jean's hard. I've always gone back and forth on Jean. I think she's a hard character to balance. I think I'm going to put her here and move Cable down, because I think her dynamic of struggling with the clone stuff is more interesting. And like I said, I am way invested in the clone stuff because I have seen the original series now. So I am like, oh man, like trying to figure out when Jean got replaced. And it's like, oh, she got kidnapped by Sinister in that episode. Is that when she was supposed to be cloned? And then I do think there are some good times. Like, in this picture here, her forehead is glowing with her blue energy. I think the show does a really good job of visualizing everybody's energy to make it clear. I don't love when she goes, like, Phoenix at the end. Like, it's kind of the awkward, like, she's not going Phoenix, but she's just like, I still have the strength to do that. And so I do like that dynamic. I don't like that it kind of comes out of... It didn't come out of nowhere, because everybody mentions the Phoenix every time they talk to Jean in this show. Yeah, so I'm going to put Jean in A and bump Cable down to B. And then we have Charles Xavier. And maybe I've got a little bit of Eric in me, but I want to put Charles down in D. I almost feel like he didn't need to be here this season. He spends the whole front half of the season, he's off with the Shi'ar, and then he gets the vision of Genosha and comes back. And then he just keeps trying. Like, he doesn't have anything new to contribute. It's the same stuff where he's like, Eric, stop. We have to be better. And like you do want peace. You don't want to kill everybody like Magneto. But at the same time, you see where Magneto is like, after an event like Genosha, how do you just talk? And so yeah, I didn't like Charles this season. He frustrated me. Meanwhile, we've got Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler is probably an S. He's either an A or an S. He doesn't have like a ton to do this season. Like, he's not like a big player like these three are. So I'll put him in A. He's my personally, I'd put him up in S. Because he's really cool. Like, they have the sword fight with the Sentinels near the end of the season during I believe it's part 1 of the finale. And how he's got the 3 swords, 2 in his hand and 1 on his tail. And I really liked that fight. And I loved the visualization that they did where like Wolverine accidentally hitchhikes on him. Because they're like, oh, we got to get him away from Rogue. And so how do you get him away from Rogue? Then by teleporting them with Nightcrawler. Like, he stabs them and then bamps off to wherever to throw them away. And then bamps back to the fight. And so I really liked his inclusion. I like his accent. I like his glowing yellow eyes. I really like the design. I think he fits well to the X-Men 97 art style, like visually. I think everybody looks good, but I think he benefits the most from the shading and shadowing in this show. I'm gonna be real with you. I didn't make this tier maker. This is one I'm just using. And I don't know why Emma's here, because Emma does nothing. I'm putting her in D, because Emma Frost, she quite literally is only there to elect Magneto as, like, king of Genosha, and then Genosha gets blown up and she gets her diamond skin. So, again, I think she's going to be similar to Forge and Bishop, where maybe next season she plays a bigger role. But at least for now, like I said, I don't know why she's on this tier list. She's literally in the show for like a minute. But then that brings us all back to Mr. Bastion himself, our big bad of the season. And I'm probably going to put Bastion in B, maybe A. Like, Bastion definitely grew on me the second watch. I thought he was a little anticlimactic the first watch through, just because, when you set up, like, Magneto and Mr. Sinister, 2 very big, iconic X-Men villains, and then they're also like, oh yeah, Bastion's there too. It's like, Bastion is cool, but he's not as cool as these two. But upon my second rewatch, it really was kind of heartbreaking to be like, oh, his father experimented with his DNA and then impregnated his mother, and that's why he's a mutant. He's got the technokinetic abilities like Forge, but he's also part Sentinel, so he hates his own kind. Like, he almost hates himself. And I really like his plan. Like, they'd never really quite explain how he infected so many people. But the fact that he's able to spread the virus to a large portion and just create so many Prime Sentinels does make him an intimidating force. So I'm going to put him right here in B. Not as cool as Magneto or Sinister, in my opinion. Well, I guess he's actually more cool than Sinister is this season. Like, Sinister has had better story arcs in the past. But I'm going to put him here for now. I do think his final fight is cool, where he upgrades himself using Cable's arm. And then when he's all messed up and he ends up, killing himself over joining the X-Men, because they stop the fight. They're like, stop fighting. Let's be better. And Bishop wants none of it. All right. So now let's go through these tiers and order them, even though they're kind of in a pretty good order already. Like, if I look at D tier probably stays the same with, like, Emma, because she's got no screen time. I don't like Charles, and I don't like Sunspot. C tier is about the same as well, because, again, Forge, not enough screen time, not enough screen time. She's dead. Disappointing. But all three have really cool potential or moments. Like, I don't hate Forge. I know I don't have a lot to say about him, but that's because I feel like he doesn't do a lot. Like I said, he's got the potential. They didn't show off his technical abilities, I feel like, because he got introduced so late in the season. I know he's in the third episode, but he doesn't really get fleshed out until episode 6. And by then, we're in the end game because it's a 3-part finale, and so it's just he's there. If I'm looking at B tier, let me actually move these around to look something like this. This is what B tier would probably look like. Morph was my favorite of these guys. And then they all, the middle of the road. They're interesting, but they're not as fascinating as these guys. So then if we're looking at A tier, he's going all the way up. You're moving up. You're probably right there. A tier probably looks something like this, where we have Nightcrawler. Like I said, personally, I'd probably put him in S, which I guess it's my personal list. But he just doesn't have enough to do this season that I gotta bump him down to A. And then Storm's story is cool. Jean and the clone stuff is interesting. Gambit goes out with a bang. Sinister is Mr. Sinister. And then Hank is cool. Like, what they had Hank doing, where on the battlefield he's out here reprogramming like, that's what they should have had Forge doing during the fights. I wish we would have seen him, like, picking up stuff from Broken Sentinels, and now he's using the blaster or stuff like that. And then we have S tier, and I think S tier is just in order. I love Scott. I love what he goes through this season. I love this character design. They all get their different designs in the finale, where they all wear, like, their classic costumes. And I don't like Scott's classic. I don't like the covering the hair. I like the open top that this one provides. And then Rogue and her struggle between Remy and Magneto, as well as then her anger afterwards. And then Magneto, you'll never get a better X-Men villain than Eric. Like, the fact that this season went back and forth on the Magneto was right, and really he was, it was fascinating and fun to watch. So yeah, that's my X-Men 97 tier list for Season 1 and the characters you see listed here. Let me know down in the comments below who was your favorite, who was your least favorite. Did you even watch X-Men 97? I would hope so if you watch this video, because I just spoiled it all. Really looking forward to next season. Let me know your predictions in the comments down below. If you liked what you saw here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you know when that next one's coming. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.